This Saturday, on the last day of the Jewish holiday of Passover, a man entered a synagogue in a suburb of San Diego and opened fire on those inside. While that was going on, he killed one woman and 3 others were injured. Rabbi Yonah Fradkin identified the woman as Laurie Kaye. Kaye was at the synagogue to pray for her mother who passed away in November. Witnesses said Kaye jumped in the line of fire to protect the synagogue's founding rabbi, Israel Goldstein, whose index fingers were injured. Another man was shot in the leg as he led children to the safety of a playroom. 2 children were so well hidden, officials did not find them until 45 minutes after the shooting. And so in these sorts of incidents, it is customary for the president to weigh in. Obviously, Donald Trump has a bit of a checkered history when it comes to events like this, but here he is addressing the shooting.
Tonight, America's heart is with the victims of the horrific synagogue shooting in Poway, California, just happened. Our entire nation mourns the loss of life, prays for the wounded, and stands in solidarity with the Jewish community. We forcefully condemn the evil of anti-Semitism and hate, which must be defeated. Just happened.
And I appreciate him saying that, although with the least passion that he's ever said anything in his life.
Yeah, well, he was on prompter there. They're like, look, God knows what this guy will say if we don't write this out for him, and we can't risk that in this kind of situation. So he went on to praise law enforcement there for getting the guy, the shooter. Then, when he was off prompter later, and the real Donald Trump, he called the FBI and Department of Justice scum because they were pursuing him in a legal case. So, yeah, praising law enforcement when it's beneficial to him and attacking law enforcement when they uncover his crimes. Okay, but obviously the major issue is the issue of anti-Semitism in this case. So this happens 6 months to the day after the Tree of Life shooting in Pittsburgh, which was the worst anti-Semitic attack in United States history, 11 killed in that shooting. Now, there's apparently a debate as to whether Donald Trump is encouraging these guys, because he called the rabbi that was shot there, who was incredibly heroic. He tried to calm the rabbi, tried to calm the shooter down, calm the people in the synagogue down. And you know what he did after he was shot? And they had, obviously the guy had run away at that point. He continued to speak to his congregation, and they had to. He wouldn't stop. He wouldn't go to the hospital until he was finished. So incredible heroism. He had nice things to say about Donald Trump after their call. But the problem is not whether Donald Trump on any given time is decent to one Jewish person. Like, wow, okay, great. I'm glad he did that because he does bungle those calls from time to time. And apparently he didn't in this case and was, according to the rabbi, genuinely empathetic. But the real issue is, what is he saying publicly? What is he encouraging? I'm never going to get past it. You should never get past it. And in fact, he doubled down on it recently when they asked him about Charlottesville. It's not like he said it ahead of Charlottesville and then he didn't know they were going to chant, "The Jews will not replace us." He didn't know they were going to chant other Nazi chants like "blood and soil." He didn't know they were going to kill someone. And well, okay, afterwards when they did, and he said, "Boy, man, I really condemn them. I didn't know that was good." No. He said there was very fine people on the Nazi side after the rally, Given a choice to walk those comments back just a couple of days ago, he said, no, what I said was said perfectly. So when you encourage that kind of anti-Semitism and the chickens come home to roost here, no, you don't get a pass on it, you don't. And how many synagogues have to be attacked? So 4 years in a row now, anti-Semitism, violent anti-Semitic attacks have increased. In 2017, they went up by 57%, I believe, according to the Anti-Defamation League. And so it goes on and on. It's not an accident, and it's not a coincidence. Look, we're gonna get more into the different layers of problems and anti-Semitism that Donald Trump has. But the shooting happened right around the time that Trump is doubling down on Charlottesville, saying that he said it perfectly. How many synagogue shootings does there have to be before somebody gets this madman under control. He keeps egging on the craziest people that believe him into doing these things. And I'll tell you why they target Jews after I let everybody chime in here and we give you a little bit more of the facts. But there is a real reason why, even though Trump mainly talks about Muslims, he says anti-Semitic things that obviously, as I just explained here, and we got more, and he mainly targets Latinos. So why do so many of these guys go after Jews? I'll explain in a sec. But
well, you know, the thing about this, there's so many things to this story, right? For one thing, it wasn't just the doubling down on Charlottesville. He had just done the NRA rally, you know, and then another AR-15 is used, and it would have been a mass shooting, but apparently the story is the gun jammed. So that's why more people didn't get shot. So thankfully the guy's gun didn't work, or we'd be talking about who knows how many people killed, you know. And with Charlottesville, this is how their mind works, as far as I can tell. This is where the separation is. He says, well, I wasn't encouraging the Nazis for the anti-Semitism. I was encouraging the racists for their support of Robert E. Lee. You know what I mean? Like to him, that's a separation. Like, no, I didn't like the Nazi. I don't like the anti-Semitist Nazis, but I like those racist Nazis. Those are my kind of Nazis. You know, and the people following him make this same insane separation, right? It's like the lie about the Southern heritage thing. And the other thing is, when you get into that racism, that KKK Southern racism, et cetera, they don't talk about, they were anti-Jew also. It wasn't like they just hated black people. They hated Jews as you know, just as much. And they try to, I don't know, clean it up or separate it, you know? And like you said, when he's on prompter, there are people sitting there backstage cringing like, please just read the words. Don't say what you really feel, because everyone knows. And there's just, you know, this huge denial, and that trick they use, that when you bring up race or anti-Semitism, you're the bad guy. Like, well, why would you? Oh, you're gonna make it anti-Semitic because I was talking about prayers for the victims. You know what I mean? So now you're the bad guy because you brought up the hate or the Nazi connection and so on. And all of this, it's all techniques and it all works. There's nothing genuine behind it. It is horrible. And just one more thing on a quick note, just on a personal level, like how this story hit. I was in Halifax last week. I'm doing a comedy festival, and I flew home Saturday. Friday, me and a couple of guys up in Canada, we were talking about the gun thing, and they were talking about the United States and the guns and how insane it is and blah. And I was like, look, I don't even know. I don't have an answer. I can't explain to a Canadian, you know, why in the United States you can go down the street, buy an AR-15 and go shoot up, fill in the blank, right? And then I get off the plane and it's happened again, like the next day. I don't know what our society, I don't know, you know, what's gonna be too much, you know? Where's the line? We've crossed every line you can imagine.
So you brought up a lot of things there. Let me quickly address that. So last night we were reviewing Game of Thrones, and I just happened to be sitting next to Ida Rodriguez, who was checking the news as we were watching this show, and she said, "Oh, there's another shooting." And then halfway through the show, there was another shooting. Now you guys probably didn't hear about those. They weren't, because they weren't massacres. So like just regular shootings where it's a horrible tragedy would be big news in another country. It just gets washed out here because there's so many shootings per day, we can't keep up with them. And what did Donald Trump do later in the rally? Celebrated guns and said, oh, the Democrats are gonna take your guns away. You just said you were concerned about the shooting at the synagogue that was done with an AR-15. Then you turn around and go, these goddamn Democrats are gonna take your guns away. And then you can't walk into a synagogue and start shooting everybody. So that's just the reality of guns. On the issue of Jewish Americans, look, I know what the trick that they play, the one that Alonzo referred to. When Donald Trump says there's very good people on the side of the people who are chanting Nazi chants, they find that to be an acceptable thing to say. When we point out that he thought there was very fine people on the Nazi side, they go, oh, you're playing the anti-Semitism card. No, that's a card that if that card exists at all, race card, anti-Semitism card, you can only say that if it's not legitimate, if it's like a made up situation. But here, synagogues are being shot. Donald Trump did say there was very fine people on the Nazi. What he said was the problem, not us pointing out what he said. And by the way, most people know that. And it's like Alonzo said, it's a trick. And they think they're being clever. They're like, oh, that's great. We'll get to hate on blacks and Jews and Muslims, etc. And then if you complain about it, we'll pretend it's your problem for complaining. It's not very clever at all. And now, to give you a sense, one more thing for now on Charlottesville. This was a white supremacist and racist rally from its original conception. And so we're not like, right now I know conservative heads are exploding. You guys call it that all the time. No, they called it that. It was so explicit that even the Proud Boys, Gavin McInnes of the Proud Boys said, man, don't go there. Whether you agree or don't agree, that'll be used against you for going to a thing that is clearly racist and white supremacist. Even the massively crazy right-wing violence celebrating Proud Boys were like, that thing is toxic, do not attend. So everybody knew what they were going for. And then I'll get to Robert E. Lee a little bit later because his comments on Lee are outrageous and people should know the real Lee.
Yeah, well, and we talked about that quite a bit on Friday's show. And look, on the Unite the Right, I've seen the posters that were put out to advertise for it. You can look them up right now. It is immensely clear what the point of it was, and also what the point of it was not. Because in all of these posters that are talking about white identity and using iconography of fascist movements and things like that, on most of them, I never saw any reference to the statue. It was just about reinforcing white identity, saying that we're not gonna be replaced by whatever demographic trends. I like that you pointed out the jamming. I actually had not seen that. It's interesting because we were told all the time that the gun doesn't matter, it's the person. Why are you focusing on the weapon? But that's like a hypothesis, and an experimental condition is jamming the gun, and it certainly seems like the killing slows down after that. It certainly seems like the gun is an important part, but we're gonna keep pretending that they would do the same with a stick or whatever. One of the things that bothers me the most about Donald Trump and his philosophy running our government is not just that I believe that it's deeply, deeply anti-Semitic. And not just that he doesn't really seem to care when an incident like this happens. I mean, you've seen him speak passionately and you saw the video that we showed you. Did that reek of Trump passion? Not to me. But there's two other things too. It is, how seriously will they take it in terms of government policy and communication? What will they do about these sorts of events? And we already know that before the events happened, they disbanded areas of the FBI and other investigative bodies in the executive department that would look into right-wing and far-right violence. So they decided, no, we are going to lay down our weapons and our ability to track down these groups, and we're gonna make it more likely that these sorts of events will happen in the future. And then you have after the attack, when we're concerned about what's feeding it, they're concerned, but not about that. So a little bit later on the show, we're gonna have how Meghan McCain attempts to divert responsibility and attention from the actual people committing these attacks to someone else. But when it comes to Kellyanne Conway, look at the pretzels she twists herself in to make sure that you're thinking about everyone other than Donald Trump and everyone other than the people who are actually perpetrating this violence, as you'll see.
Does President Trump still think that white nationalism is not a growing threat around the world? Is he reconsidering that?
Well, the irony is that he condemned white nationalism and neo-Nazis and the KKK during the Charlottesville incident.
My question about this incident, since you brought it up, is who are these very fine people? Because Friday night, the rally was.
No, let me just interject.
Let me just set the stage
we've said
here.
this so many times, but I think people are starting to be honest about it.
It was called the Unite the Right rally, and it was formed by people like Richard Spencer, who was a white supremacist. Friday night was the Tiki Torch March. Jews will not replace us.
With horrible people.
Right.
People could see them on
Saturday, Heather Heyer was killed. Who are the very fine people he's talking about?
Heather Heyer was murdered, and her murderer has been brought to justice.
But who were the very fine people?
He was talking about the debate over removing statues and renaming.
So he wasn't talking about the weekend at all. He was just talking about the theoretical discussion.
In fact, he condemned them in no uncertain terms, unequivocally. Go and pull the full comments. He condemned them over time.
President Trump said he didn't.
That's why he's the president.
He didn't think white nationalism was a growing threat around the world, and I'm asking.
He does think it's a threat. And there's no question it's a threat.
He does think it's a threat.
Yes, of course he thinks it's a threat. That's why he condemned it in no uncertain terms. And people
he
lied
said
about
6
it,
weeks ago, I don't really
network.
think it's a threat.
No, they were saying a growing threat. But it is a threat. And
is it a growing
threat? It's horrible wherever it is.
Okay, so really fast on that. Before the attacks, they take out the groups in government that would investigate these sorts of things and stop them from happening. Afterward, look at how much effort they are putting into refusing to acknowledge that it's a big issue. You have a synagogue shooting, not a big threat. More synagogues shot internationally, not a big threat. Another synagogue shooting here, not a big threat. At this point, just like, if anything, just to reassure people in that community that you care at all about whether they live or die, say that it's a massive threat and you're taking it seriously.
So Kellyanne Conway is a known liar. And so she says, check the tape. So then Tapper quotes her from the tape. She's like, well, okay, that was inconvenient. So yeah, he had it on the spot. And on the Charlottesville, he didn't say there was very fine people at a different rally. He definitely, when we have checked the tape, and we've shown you the tape, he definitely said it about the Charlottesville rally. And Jake Tapper's question coincidentally happened to be the same exact thing I asked on C-SPAN on Sunday morning. I said, I'm still challenging Donald Trump to name one fine person from that rally. Who is it? And there are no fine people at that rally. So I would go back to Robert Lee for a second, then I want to really get to why they target Jews so much. So look, we did videos on it already. I don't want to believe it. I just want to, if you haven't seen those videos, Robert E. Lee was a slaveholder, personally whipped his own slaves, and then would pour toxins into their open wounds after whipping them, and would not exchange prisoners if they were black prisoners. At the Battle of the Crater, murdered every single black Union soldier who had surrendered at that battle. And killed, was a commander of the traitors who killed hundreds of thousands of Americans because they so desperately wanted to own other human beings. Robert E. Lee is not a good guy, not at all. You could argue as the commander of the traitorous Confederate Army, he was the biggest enemy America has ever had, and certainly on body count, and the biggest defender of slavery there has ever been. He fought, he risked his life to make sure you could keep black people as property. So don't tell me you're interested, very fine people who want to keep statues of Robert E. Lee. No, they should all be torn down. Should we also have statues of other American enemies all over the South, like Osama bin Laden and Heinrich Himmler? Which other American enemies would you like to put up as statues in the South? No deal, no deal at all. I don't agree to a bin Laden statue, and I don't agree to a Robert E. Lee statue.
Well, you brought up all the killing of black people. You have to remember that Robert E. Lee and the white people at that time didn't think of black people as human. So he didn't think of it as whipping humans, killing humans. I mean, they just didn't think of us as human life. We were property. So the people who defend this, the people who talk about the Southern heritage, they just deny that. They just deny that reality. When they talk about the Southern heritage, it's like, well, the Southern heritage is racism. It's horrible racism. It's abuse, murder, rape, etc. You know, Thomas Jefferson had a black girlfriend. No, he didn't. He owned a slave. Like, he raped a slave. She didn't have a choice. She couldn't say, well, no. You know what I mean? So there's that. Now getting to the Kellyanne Conway thing, and this is the problem they have is they have to do their wink to their supporters, right? So the funniest thing she said when he said that there's been rising white nationalism, she said, oh, not right. He said he condemned nationalism, not rising. That's like saying, oh, you have a tumor, but it's not a growing tumor. So it's, you know, you have an okay tumor. But they will parse it that slim, that thin, to say, I'm not lying, or he didn't say that.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, it's objectively false because you showed the numbers. This is the greatest spike in anti-Semitic incidents in 40 years. The ADL said it's the first year, 2017 was the first year where we ever had one anti-Semitic recorded incident in all 50 states. You had the worst instance of violence at the Tree of Life Synagogue. You have white supremacists marking the anniversary now with other shootings. It's getting to the point where shootings in synagogues won't even be major news very soon, and yet the hill they want to die on is, it's kind of a threat, maybe a few people, as Trump said, but not a rising threat. Now, so if you are one of these worshipers, if you're going to a synagogue, do you believe that white supremacists who like Donald Trump, anti-Semites who like Donald Trump, you can say whether he likes them or not, but they're fans of his, do they feel like they've been told not to engage in those sorts of acts? Are they actually chastened from doing it in the future, from that that middling milquetoast video of Donald Trump that you saw where he said, it must be defeated. Are they defeated? Are they gonna throw down their arms? Are there not gonna be any more shootings in the future? Does anyone actually believe that that's how they will greet what he said to them?
So look, if somebody did that and they were on the left and they, you know what we would say? We hate you, we condemn you, we hope you're brought to justice in every way imaginable. You are by definition not one of us. I mean, we can go on and on. And does Trump ever get that passionate? Of course, when it's about him, no collusion, no obstruction. When it's about him, when it's, so Jews died in a synagogue. I am told I've got to read this thing about how I have sympathy for them. Well, they say, well, you know, his son-in-law and his daughter is now Jewish, and his grandkids, some of his grandkids are Jewish. So, yeah, but it didn't erase all those stereotypes in his head. That's why he goes to the Republican Jewish Coalition and says, yeah, nobody knows how to renegotiate better than these people here. And he says, I'm not going to be controlled by you because you like to control your politicians. What part of that is not anti-Semitic? But bottom line is, he said at one point in the speech, he said, we will get to the bottom of it. We're gonna get to the bottom of a lot of things happening in this country. Well, you know what you're gonna find at the bottom? You. So when you encourage your base and you don't wanna criticize them because you wanna keep getting their votes in the next election, you know what your base is up to? And this part he might not know, but he should know, and when he eggs them on, it has consequences. So they hate Muslims, they hate Latinos, they hate blacks, and the alt-right has a debate. Should we hate all those people plus the Jews? Or should we leave the Jews out of it and just hate all those other folks, right? But the reason why a lot of the alt-right includes the Jews, and at the end of the day, there's so many attacks against Jews in America, is because when they explain their conspiracy theories about why things happen the way that they do, they have all these horrible, ugly, racist stereotypes about everybody. Oh, Latinos are lazy, blacks are violent, Muslims are ultra violent, et cetera, et cetera. But that doesn't really explain why they're poor or they're disadvantaged, the racists themselves, why they're in such bad shape. So they need one more thing. And if you go on 8chan, you go to any of these, look, a lot of it is open on the websites. They spell it out. All these shooters talk about it. They say, yes, but the puppet masters are the Jews. They have the money. They're the ones controlling everything, including the Latinos in the caravan. Matt Gaetz talked about that. Donald Trump referred to it. So it's George Soros.
The Tree of Life shooter referred to it?
Tree of Life shooter referred to it. So at the bottom of this horrific barrel lies anti-Semitism. And if you go deep enough, they say, you know, as much as you hate blacks and Latinos and Muslims, all of that is the fault of the Jews. It's not random that they're walking into synagogues and murdering Jews all over the country. It's because that is their ideology. They can cover it up with, I mean, for the moment being, we like Israel. I mean, later it'll lead to Armageddon where they all die. But for the moment being, we kind of like it. And some of them really believe that. But when you get to the most dangerous guys in America that Donald Trump is egging on, they think it's all the Jews' fault. That's why you're seeing all these shootings at a synagogue. At a time like this, when we have the worst anti-Semitism, at least of our lifetimes, where Jews are being murdered all across the country, lukewarm, milquetoast words in public so you don't anger your racist, anti-Semitic, bigoted base is nowhere near good enough. The TYT Plus app is now available on iOS and Android. Download to get more TYT content at tyt.com/app.